I really think that Samsung handled this situation rather poorly. For a company their size and their prestige, you would think they'd be a lot more serious about fixing the issue as opposed to sweeping it under the rug. That's a problem. It comes down to quality assurance, making sure that these replacement devices are put through stringent testing to ensure that they are good to go. But as it turns out, it doesn't seem like that happened.
I think Samsung did just about as well as it could be expected. I mean, they had this huge problem. They did a recall. That didn't work, so they're doing kind of like a second recall, except for, they're just getting it off the market. They're telling people to go get, their phones refunded. They're telling people to go turn them back in, get rid of them. They're sending out those ridiculous boxes with like the ceramic paper lining so that the box doesn't explode. It's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, Samsung is doing pretty much, what else could they possibly do?
There are millions of phones out there, including this Note 7 that I have in my hand. Don't worry, it's turned off. And they had to tell everyone to turn them off, dispose of them properly, and to get them out of their hands, because out of all the millions of phones, any one of them could be the next problem. And that's just a risk that a company like Samsung is unable to take.
They were very quick to react to this situation when they first heard that it was happening. This was, like the first week of September. We were still in IFA covering the event at the time. They issued that recall that same exact week, and they started the exchange program pretty much immediately. Obviously, the exchange program didn't work out. Phones were still exploding, and that's why the phone is completely discontinued now. So I think this was the right course of action for it. It's unfortunate that it happened, but I think this is the best way to go about it, because if they were to try to issue another recall and another exchange, and then more phones kept blowing up, still, that would have been even worse.
And I think when it comes to a company, screwing up on this kind of scale, that's kind of what you expect them to do. Like, Samsung has taken the hit to the revenue, but they're going to be okay because they make more than $10 billion a year. And really, what else could you ask them to do?
I think there's still a very strong fan base with the Note line. That's what has made the Note line so successful. So I think they can recover from this. I think they can salvage the Note line and continue it if they choose to continue it. I hope that they do.
And Samsung basically will just have to be very forthcoming about what they do in the production of their phone in order to make it safe for all their users so they can skirt this controversy. But also, that's kind of good for us users, because then we might get more transparency in the way that our phones are actually created and what kind of parts are actually being used in these devices.
I think people still even want the Note 7. It's just,
right now it sucks, but long term, seeing that the Note brand is still recognizable and still considered one of the premier smartphones whenever they're announced, I think Samsung will be okay come next year.
I think next year is going to be that really awkward phase where people are walking in and like, is this the one that exploded? And the CSRs are going to have to be like, no, these aren't the ones that exploded. That was last year's model. This is the new model. And I think there's going to be some people who are apprehensive about picking one of these devices up. However, I think that if Samsung doesn't screw up anymore, at least not on this kind of scale, I think that by 2018 that everything's going to be fine. Everyone will be looking forward to the Note series again. And this is going to be one of those like, you remember back in 2016? Holy crap, that sucked. Well, I would be lying if I said that I didn't, think that it was going to affect the way that I'm going to buy things moving forward. When it comes to Samsung, obviously I still trust the brand. 2 out of their 3 phones didn't explode this year, so I guess that's positive. But, next year when the next Note comes out, it's going to be one of those wait and see kind of things. I'm not going to pre-order the phone. I'm going to see what the reviews say. I'm going to see how it stands after a few weeks. And if everything's good, then, yeah, I might actually buy one.
Every phone has the potential of going bad. Even those indestructible phones that they claim, it could be a defect, it could be a physical damage issue, but every phone is prone to a problem. Of course, the Note 7 is more prevalent now because of the instances of it catching fire. But to me, if they're able to address that with the next version, and that next version has all the features I want and also is a top performer in every category, it's always going to be in consideration for me.
I don't think this is something that's going to roll over to their next generation of devices. It's just one big anomaly, and it's unfortunate that it happened to such a big company, to such a well-known company. So no, it doesn't change my mind about Samsung. It doesn't influence what I think about them at all. I still trust them as a company. I still will buy their products in the future.
That said, the upcoming year is going to be important for Samsung, like I said in the last answer, because now Samsung will have to be very candid and have a lot of transparency in terms of how their phones are constructed, and they have to make sure that we know that we can still trust them.
Number one thing I think they should do right now is apologize, not just through a press release statement, but whenever they announce their next big phone, whether it be the S8, before that they do that, they get on stage, they just want to address all the issues surrounding the Note 7 and have a genuine apology about that.
This is a very good opportunity for a lot of other companies. With the Note 7 gone, it's important that you, the Android user, sheath your S Pen and turn this phone off and explore what else is out there in the world of Android, because this year has been incredible. Now, what Samsung will have to do in order to get back their momentum is still reassure their Samsung faithful that their phones are still safe to use. And there's a lot of Samsung fans that will be flocking back to the S8 or the Note 8 whenever those come out next year. So I don't think Samsung's going to have much of a problem.
Second thing I think is to refund customers for any of the secondary items they bought for the Note 7, whether it be screen protectors, case, because right now, if the Note 7 is not going to be available anymore, that means they're stuck with those products, and maybe for some people, they might be out of the return policy. So at least give them some sort of compensation for that.
Just focus on the future, focus on their next generation of devices, and just right this ship completely. And that's all they can do. And they'll be able to do that. Samsung makes a ton of different things. They make washer and dryers, they make refrigerators, they make computers. So they're not solely invested purely on smartphones here. Yes, it's a big loss, but it's a loss that they as a company can recover from, and they totally will.
I mean, in terms of recovery, there are a lot of things that Samsung could do, but right now I think they're doing what needs to be done. They need to get the Note 7 out of here so that it doesn't explode on anybody else, and they need to focus on all of the rest of their devices moving forward. They're getting the Note 7 out of here, they're going to focus on their next devices, they're probably, hopefully they give discounts on their current devices so that, the competitors don't run amok over the next couple of weeks. But I think at the end of the day, the best course of action is just to hunker down and make sure that this doesn't happen again.
But what Samsung can do is just come back even stronger than before and make a device that, for some of us users will understand, is going to be desperately spectacular. And so there you have it for this Android Authority reacts to the Note 7 controversy, the fact that this phone has been taken out of production and no longer should be in your hands. If you are a Note 7 owner currently, we do implore you to turn off your devices and go through the proper channels to get your refunds, and for this phone to go into the recycling or some sort of disposal, proper disposal through Samsung's own channels. If you happen to be on a different carrier, you can always exchange this phone for a completely new one or just go ahead and get a full refund. Stay tuned to Android Authority for all of the best, including what might happen with Samsung over the next year. Of course, the onus is on them to create a device and a future that is a lot more than what this current issue is now. Keep it tuned to Android Authority for that and even more, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for even more reviews, comparisons, and pieces like this, because we are your source for all things Android.